Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, Michel Barnier, the European Union's top negotiator, was back in action today, looking, I have to say, with a slightly more harsh demeanour than I've ever seen him before, very much giving the impression that he is in charge. He's the governor, and we must do exactly everything that he tells us. And he was making it very, very clear today that once Brexit has happened, the European Court of Justice, and I quote, must have jurisdiction to guarantee citizens' rights. We want EU citizens in Britain to have the same rights as British citizens who live in the EU. Well, it all sounds perfectly reasonable on one level, until, of course, you understand something, which is, Monsieur Barnier, we voted for Brexit. And one of the things we absolutely voted for was not to have the European Court of Justice, based in Luxembourg, stuffed with people, by the way, folks, who aren't even judges. They're jurists, they're so-called experts on European law. We don't want them, in my opinion, having a say over what happens in this country. And it's not as if, given what the government said, that we're going to treat EU citizens living here badly. No, actually, we've been very generous with our big offer, and we'll all be treated equally before the law. It kind of, sometimes I think, given our history, given Magna Carta, given common law, given that we were centuries ahead of Europe on parliamentary democracy, a bit rich, I think, sometimes to be lectured by Monsieur Barnier on what is fair and reasonable in terms of points of law. So I'm asking you, would you be happy, post-Brexit, for the European Court still to have a say in this country? He's insisting upon it, and I'm saying that wouldn't be Brexit, and it wouldn't be right, and it wouldn't be fair. Let me know, please, what you think by calling 0345 6060 973. You can, of course, text 84850, and you can tweet. And if it's clean, I will read it out at LBC using the hashtag Farage and LBC. And as ever, you can watch the show live on Facebook by going to lbc.co.uk. And without further ado, I'm going to Matthew in Heathrow. Matthew, good evening.
Oh, hi, Nigel. Basically, I think it's fair that European citizens in the UK, when they came over to this country, we was in Europe, they've put their roots here, and until they become British citizens, they've got to be governed by the European Court of Justice.
Really?
It is. You can't just suddenly, people who have come here, just sort of change the rules. If they want to be... if Theresa May gives them straight away British citizenship and they accept that, and then the UK rules should apply. But we can't just leave these people, and it's going to work in reverse. People in France, Belgium, they're going to have their European rights kept there, that they can bring family and everything.
But surely, Matthew, when in Rome, look, we're not, Matthew, a third world country who treat foreign citizens badly. In fact, we probably treat foreign citizens better than any other country in the world. Matthew, what's not to like about UK law and the UK legal system?
Well, but Theresa May has already, how she's outlined it, they are going to become first-class citizens. They're not going to be British citizens, so then they're not going to have the same rights as the British citizens while they're waiting for the British citizenship.
Well, so many, Matthew, may not choose to take it, of course. Some will, some won't. But, you say they won't have the same rights. Apart from voting rights, there isn't very much else that's different, really, is there? Well,
there's going to be... at the moment, people have set their roots here, and if they want to bring their families over here, I think it's right they should be able to do it, and they shouldn't be treated like people from the rest of the world, because at the moment, if people have been working in this country, paying their taxes, set their roots here, they've got to be looked after to make sure they keep the same rights as when they first came here.
But if somebody who comes from Ethiopia wouldn't expect to have an Ethiopian court judge how they could live in the United Kingdom, would they?
But at the moment, their rights is under the European thing. And as we're leaving, it's a choice of the UK to leave. But we can't just kick these people out. I think...
No, Matthew, we're not... No, hang on. Whoa down there. We're not suggesting that, all right? There may be some listening who think we should, but we're not suggesting that. And nobody on the Leave campaign at any point, whatever criticisms there may be, nobody ever suggested that. Matthew, all I'm saying to you is that if we allow, whatever the rights and wrongs are, if we were to allow the European Court of Justice to have a say over the rights of people living in the United Kingdom, that wouldn't be Brexit, Matthew.
Well, I mean, they're here now, and I think they should keep their European rights unless they choose to become British citizens.
So then you'd have you living in Heathrow, Matthew, living under a different legal system to your next-door neighbour who'd come from Luxembourg.
Well, at the moment, I mean, they've got to keep their European rights, because when they came here, we was part of Europe, and that you can't just suddenly take something away from someone.
Brexit changes that, and what it means, if you're living in this country, you live by our laws in our country. And Matthew, I honestly don't think that's unreasonable.
Well, no, I think it is, because you can't say to people, right, okay, now we've changed our mind that if you want to stay, you've got to either follow.
You've got to live by. I say it, Matthew. If you want to stay, and the government's made it perfectly clear, you're very welcome to. If you want to stay, you've got to live by our laws. How bad's that?
Yeah, but when they're staying, they're not British citizens, so they're not going to be treated like a British citizen. We already, that's already been highlighted by Theresa May's proposal.
But we're decent, Matthew. We're decent people.
Yeah, I know, but we've got to give them to say, right, okay, you can become a British citizen, and we've got to fast track.
But ultimately,
if they choose to say, we've got to encourage them to do that, and then as soon as they accept that, then obviously European Justice Court of Justice won't apply to them.
I think, Matthew, you and I are not going to agree on this, but we've had a very civil debate, and I thank you very much for the call. Richard in Chelsea says, functionaries in Brussels have their own agenda. They've little intention of offering the UK any deal. They should be firmly told, in plain English or French, to behave themselves. Dear Nigel, if European citizens want to stay in the UK, they must abide by British law. Out means out of European jurisdiction, says Amanda. If the ECJ has jurisdiction in the UK after Brexit, that means Brexit in name only, says another, anonymously. And I agree with them. Andy in Cardiff, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
You and I have discussed this before, haven't we?
Yes, we have. This is a two-pronged call, if you like.
Go on, then.
The first prong of my call is the previous caller. That's just, he's just foolish to believe that. You can't believe for 1 second that if I wanted to go and live in Spain, I could declare that I'm under UK law.
Quite.
It doesn't work that way.
Quite.
Right, my second point is more of an I told you so.
Go on, then. You have your fun, Andy. Go on.
6 or 7 weeks ago, I said that the EU would push us down a route where we'd end up having no choice other than to take WTO rules and to come out of Europe and go to the WTO. Now, what you're seeing now is Barnier and his cronies actually getting together to create a win scenario to look good in front of the EU 27 by saying, we are being flexible, the UK are not, and offering us a small point that they know we won't agree to.
Now, Andy, if we go to WTO rules, and you're clearly very well versed in this, what that means for everybody else living normal lives, who don't study this stuff, is that we would not have a tariff-free trade deal with our European neighbours, though, of course, we'd be free to negotiate others around the world. And that, by some in big business, has been said to be perhaps sort of falling off a cliff and a disaster scenario. So you think, Andy, that this is basically Barnier grandstanding, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. But I do disagree with you on one point there, Nigel. Mm-hmm. And that is that once we go to WTO rules, the EU will wait a couple of months, and then they'll offer us a duplicate deal to that's been offered to the likes of Canada, the US, or Japan, or the others.
Wasn't that hilarious, Andy?
Free trade access to the EU.
Wasn't that funny, Andy? Last week, on the same day, we had Monsieur Barnier saying, aha, we are a 21st century European Union. We are going to have a free trade deal with Japan. How about that, you stupid Brits? To which I thought, hang on, Switzerland, little Switzerland, has had one of these for years that it's... And then on the same day, Barnier said the UK could not have frictionless trade. So there is a huge contradiction, Andy, in their positions. I completely understand what you're saying. I felt, I must say, and I do know Barnier, we've debated together, and strangely, when I'm in the coffee room, it's sort of a room where coffee, amongst other things, are served in Strasbourg. And whenever Barney is in there, he always makes a point of coming over and shaking hands and being very polite and very nice and very decent. But I thought, Andy, we saw a different Barnier today. I said at the start of this, it was a much harsher Barnier. But surely, Andy, don't they realise that if they force us down this route, it'll hurt them a lot more than it's going to hurt us?
Right, but that's the point, Nigel. Number one, it'll be our fault, not their fault, and that's what they're trying to actually create. It's our fault.
It's the blame game.
Not theirs. But also, Barnier changing his tone, changing his way towards us. This is all pressure from the other EU27 saying, you better not offer them something that gives them favouritism within the EU.
Andy, you've made your points very, very well. Andy there from Cardiff giving us a I told you so call. Nigel, I'm horrified to think that the ECJ may have jurisdiction over the UK after Brexit. We voted to leave. Goodness me, says Mary in Weymouth as she reaches for something. The smelling salts, perhaps. Right now you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Well, a month on, the flames have obviously died down and the smoke has dissipated, but there's no let-up in the love, affection and outpouring of grief. I'm outside the local church. It was effectively the muster centre for the victims of Grenfell. But even as you walk around, looks like the sort of buildings that you see in the recent liberation of Mosul. It's as if it's been attacked by the US Marines. It's charred, it's blackened, it's scarred, it's twisted, it's without glass. It just lies as stands as a testament to a night of unspeakable horror.
And my son is suffering far more than me because he was in the surrounding area watching that beast burning and knowing that his father was inside. And I was assuring him, I'm okay, Christopher, I'm getting out of here.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
She was a bubbly, fun-loving person. I think she went to school to socialise rather than learn. She was a bit of a wild child. The last words I said to her when she left the house was, I love you, and enjoy your evening, and don't be late home. But she never come home.
Heart disease can kill when you least expect it. But with the British Heart Foundation's research, there is hope. Donate £3 at bhf.org.uk.
Right now, Linden Homes have 2 beautiful developments close to the heart of London and 2 great ways to get you moving. You could find your dream home at Elmbank Barnet or Millbrook Park in Mill Hill. And selling your current property and moving into your spacious new home can be quick and easy. Because with Linden Homes Part Exchange, we could be your buyer. And if you reserve by the end of July, we could pay your stamp duty. Search Linden Homes Millbrook Park or Linden Homes Elmbank. Selected plots, conditions apply.
We asked people to put a price on their hearing. One reply said £100 trillion because I love music and languages. Another said, priceless. Who wouldn't want to hear their grandchildren laughing? We know how much you value your hearing. That's why at Boots we have interest-free monthly payment plans available to make the right hearing solution for you even more affordable. Boots, let's feel good. Subject to status, over 18s only. Terms and conditions apply.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
We've been thinking about pruning, not your peonies or your privet, but your cost of living, and how, from broadband to mobile phones, these days we're all looking for ways to trim our spending. And then we thought, couldn't we help you cut back on your biggest outgoing? And we thought, yes, we could. So we'll always try to help you remortgage to a better rate and save on your monthly repayments. Mortgages for how life is now. NatWest. We are what we do.
Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
What if seats folded more than one way? What if parking could be easier? At Honda, we never stop making our best better. Honda, the power of dreams. At Honda, we never stop making our best better. Now get more Honda for less with no deposit, 0% APR representative and up to 5 years free servicing on selected cars in the range at your local dealership until 31st of July. Honda, the power of dreams. T's and C's apply.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
A little bit of breaking news from Westminster. The Speaker, John Bercow, has just announced that the Right Honourable Nicky Morgan MP has been elected as the new chair of the Treasury Committee. She will formally take up that post very shortly. And guess who she beat to get that position? There are going to be some listeners to this show who are going to be in mourning when I tell you she beat, yes, your favourite from last night, Jacob Rees-Mogg. So Parliament has picked a firm Remainer, not a Leaver, to take over the Treasury Committee. Says it all. Sorry, Jacob, don't worry. According to my listeners and texters and tweeters last night, greater things await you. So we'll have to see. Now, Michel Barnier was in action today in Brussels, and I said already he looked harsh. It was a very different looking Barnier. Andy from Cardiff was suggesting that actually this is all so that they can look good, paint us out to be the baddies, but he was making it seem to me a pretty unreasonable demand that post-Brexit the European Court of Justice must have jurisdiction to guarantee EU citizens' rights living in the UK. And I'm making the argument that surely, you know, we are a very decent country, we're fair to everybody, and when in Rome, if you live here, you live post-Brexit under British law. Some agree, some disagree. But that wasn't the only point Barnier was making today, because he was responding a bit to Boris Johnson yesterday. Do you remember Boris yesterday, when he was asked a question? And he said, yes, that actually the divorce bill that was being demanded from the European Union was extortionate, and that he agreed with the honourable member that we should tell them to go whistle if they wanted something like 100 billion euros. Well, Barnier hit back on this today. Wow. He said, I am not hearing any whistling, just a clock ticking. And he went on in very, very indignant mood to say people have used words like ransom. Yes, I know. I remember. It was me 2 months ago. Have a listen to this.
You've shown yourselves with these demands to be vindictive, to be nasty. All I can say is thank goodness we're leaving. You're behaving like the mafia. You think we're a hostage. We're not. We're free to go. We're free to go. And 85, and this, now I know, I do understand.
Onorevole Farage.
I do understand.
Onorevole Farage. Onorevole Farage.
All right. If you're not, no, I do understand. I do understand, sir, Mr. President. I do understand national sensitivities. I'll change it to gangsters.
Well, there you are. That was me having a little pop at Barnier a couple of months ago when I was told that sort of overnight this ransom demand of 50 billion euros apparently was going to become 100 billion euros. And yet, just as on the previous point about EU citizens living under EU law post-Brexit, once again, I think today, Barnier was being really, really unreasonable. He said it's not an exit bill, it's not a punishment, it's not revenge, it's simply settling accounts. Well, Monsieur Barnier, we're chunking in a net £10 billion, £30 million every day, and if you read your beloved Lisbon Treaty, it says that at the point at which we leave, after the Article 50 process, we have no further obligations. Maybe Andy in Cardiff is right. Maybe they are actually setting this up, almost goading the British into simply walking away. Mary on Facebook says, no, definitely not. Brexit means freedom from the EU. If citizens from Europe reside in the UK, they should be bound by our law. Norman says, maybe we can ask the USA, Australia or Canada to accept the rule of British law. Some chance. Caroline says, what's the point of leaving if we're going to bring their rules along with us? I get that. Pauline says EU citizens are treated better in the UK than they are in their own countries. So why the hell should we have the EU mafia interfering in our country. Pauline, wash your mouth out with soap and water. I had to apologise for calling them the mafia. They are, after all, only gangsters. Alex in Camden, is it acceptable, post-Brexit, that the European Court of Justice has say over how people in this country live their lives?
Well, Nigel, what an introduction you've given. You've taken us right around the houses. Even I had to have the indignity of listening to you barracking the EU in the European Parliament.
Well, do you know something, Alex?
Where do I
hang on. Do you know something? If I don't raise these points in the way that I do, then nobody else in British politics does. And one of the things I've tried to do over the years is to say things that people find to be unacceptable, and then once I've said it and been called the bad guy, they then, as with Boris yesterday, find it easier to say.
Nigel, you don't seem to have 1 ounce of diplomacy inside you. Now, I mean, I don't know what ingredients went into making.
Well, that's because I'm a leaver, Alex. I'm a leaver. Yeah. I'm not a compromiser.
That doesn't have.
I'm not an appeaser.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to define you, Nigel. And the worry I have is that where we've gone wrong with Europe is, first of all, British people losing sight of the fact that if you elect UKIP MPs to the European Parliament, the message you're giving is that we're not electing a competent bunch of people to the Parliament to actually participate constructively in what's happening in Europe.
So in what way, Alex, in what way would you say that I'm not competent?
I would, because you don't understand...
Oh, really?
You don't understand law, Nigel.
I get it, Alex. So had I gone to Eton and Oxford and never had a proper job, I'd have been perfectly suited, would I?
I went to London University, but on the law point, Nigel, you say that the ECJ is going to have a role. What role is it, Nigel?
Well, that is
all they're trying to do is protect the rights of European citizens in this country. And do you know why they're doing it, Nigel? Because you're the man who knows everything about England and everything about the English, so you would understand the nature of our constitution in this country. What is it about our parliament and our laws, Nigel, that mean they need protecting from external agents like the ECJ or the European Court of Justice? Can you tell your audience now what it is about UK law that requires it?
Our law is designed for our citizens, and that is entirely true. However, Alex, the point that I repeatedly make is when it comes to dealing with foreign nationals, I don't think there's a country in the world that over the last few centuries has been better, more open-hearted or more generous than we've been, and there is no way, post-Brexit, we're going to start treating people unfairly or badly, because that's how we do things.
Nigel, our laws are not entrenched. That means any parliament can come along and override the laws that have been passed previously. That's why David Cameron was.
Well, that's called Alex. That's called democracy. That's called democracy. We don't have a written constitution, and I get that. But democracy means that after an election, laws can change. But Alex, do you honestly think that this country should be taking lessons in fairness and democracy and justice from Monsieur Barnier and a court in Luxembourg made up of people who aren't even judges?
But the point you're missing, Nigel, the European Court of Justice is a court system that represents all the countries within the EU. Our judges are part of it. In fact, we were instrumental in setting it up. So we're not taking lessons from Mr. Barnier. In fact, Mr. Barnier is reading lessons back to us that we wrote. This structure...
Well, given Alex...
Let me finish this point, Nigel.
Given your deep knowledge, Alex,
you need this education. You need this education,
Alex,
Nigel.
given your knowledge of this, would you accept that only Britain and Ireland in the European Union have a system of common law? And all the others have an inquisitorial system, which means in most European countries you can be chucked in a slammer and kept there for months, perhaps even years, before even facing charge. Would you accept that, Alex, given your expertise on all of this?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good.
Remember, the system in the UK is based on common law.
Yes.
The systems in Europe are based on like you say.
And which do you prefer, Alex? Which do you prefer?
Obviously, our system's superior, Nigel.
Thank
which
you.
Is why
Hooray! We're winning.
Nigel, the EU adopted our system, and so did the European Court of Justice.
And then subverted it.
What are we doing, Nigel? We're now trying to say that we don't want our own system imposed on us. How does that make sense?
There is no way, Alex, there is no way that you can look at the way the European Court of Justice operate and say to me that is the application of common law, because it simply isn't.
Nigel,
and in fact, the court
listeners...
itself is highly political. As I say, they're not even judges. They're mostly political appointees. They're mostly academics, which no doubt you would approve of thoroughly. Look, Alex, all I'm saying to you is this. I think, and whether we agree or disagree, surely this is the key point. If post-Brexit, you living in your house in Camden, living under different law to your next-door neighbour, that simply can't be right, can it?
No, that's not what's going to happen, though, Nigel. You're misrepresenting it to the public. What will happen is, if British law changes in such a way, let's say there's a UKIP government, God forbid, but imagine UK law.
Can you imagine if voters got what they wanted? Wouldn't it be awful, wouldn't it? So do you really loathe democracy, Alex, that much?
No, I'm saying if UK law changed in such a way, let's say there was a UKIP government and they said they wanted to send people from the EU back to their own countries, those people could appeal to an external court. It's not for the ECJ to decide anything in this country except matters that relate to the EU. And even now, Nigel, while you've told the public all these lies about the 350 million...
Oh, dear. Oh, Alex, you're boring me now. Alex, you're boring me now. You're clearly not a regular listener to the show, because if you were, you'd know. We've said it 100 times. That had nothing to do with me at all. Alex, we ain't going to agree. I'm sorry, Alex. I think we have a great, may not be perfect, but a far superior legal system, frankly, to the rest of Europe. We don't need to take lectures from them on how to do things. We will treat EU citizens fairly after we have Brexited from the European Union. And if we're going to go on with the European Court of Justice having a say in this country, then it won't be Brexit, will it? You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Moira Alderson.
A vigil will be held in West London tonight to remember the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire. It's exactly a month since at least 80 people were killed in the disaster and dozens of others were left homeless. The King of Spain says he's confident his country and the UK will overcome their differences about Gibraltar. Felipe VI has addressed MPs and peers in Parliament as part of his state visit. It's been an extraordinary men's quarter-final day at Wimbledon. Defending champion Andy Murray is out and Novak Djokovic retired injured. Roger Federer is the only one of the big four to make it into the semi-finals. LBC weather staying dry overnight for most places. Largely clear skies and light winds, feeling cooler with an overnight low of 14 degrees.
LBC Travel. Good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Well, starting off in East London, the A13 is closed eastbound between the Ferry Lane interchange and the Weddington interchange. That's because of a car fire, leaving queues back to the Goresbrook interchange. Lots to look out for on the M25 in Surrey. Anti-clockwise is queuing between 14 for Heathrow and 13 for Staines after an accident, now on the hard shoulder. Anti-clockwise also slow between 12 for the M3 and 11 for Chertsey after a collision. Clockwise, there's one lane closed on the entry slip and on the main carriageway at Chertsey as well. That's after a separate accident there. Into Hertfordshire, the A1M is queuing northbound from junction 4 for the A414 North Orbital, up to 9 for Letchworth after a collision earlier on. And in Kent, the M20 has two lanes closed eastbound between 11 for Hythe and 12 for the A20 after a fuel spillage, leaving queues on the approach. Both exit slips are also closed at junction 8 on the A20. That's the Maidstone services. A lorry overturned earlier on, that's causing delays as well. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
An amazing kitchen, an amazing bathroom, an amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get a third off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
Don't settle for poor rates. Change your travel money before you get to the airport with Thomas Exchange UK. Established in 1978, visit one of our 6 London branches or find our best rates online at tefx.co.uk. And with prepaid currency cards and international bank transfers at fantastic rates, Thomas Exchange UK is the place for your travel money. So visit tefx.co.uk today. That's tefx.co.uk.
What's the smart way to visit Ireland? With Aer Lingus, you'll enjoy great fares, a 4-star service and a warm Irish welcome from the moment you step on board. And with 14 daily departures from London Heathrow and 5 from Gatwick, we've got more flights to Dublin than any other airline. Fares are from just $32.99 each way as part of a return trip from Gatwick. Smart gets great value. Smart flies Aer Lingus, Ireland's only 4-star airline. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
Moving house, nightmare. I need a plasterer, plumber, electrician, builder, painter, locksmith, gardener, and somebody to move my valuables, the drinks trolley. Relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. They have all the tradespeople you can think of, reputable and reviewed, so you always get a job well done. Well done me, I say, for getting it all sorted. I shall reward myself with a cheeky tipple from the trolley. Chin chin, pass me the gin. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. Have you discovered the award-winning new Citroen C3? With integrated connected cam Citroen, 36 bi-tone colour combinations, Apple CarPlay, and 3 years free servicing. Why not discover it for yourself in showrooms now, or search new C3. Citroen. Features available on selected models. 3-year offer ends after 36 months or if 35,000 miles are exceeded, whichever occurs soonest. Terms and conditions apply at participating dealers only.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
We're discussing Monsieur Barnier, the EU's chief negotiator, really being the hard nut today and saying that post-Brexit it's imperative that EU citizens living in the UK live under the European Court of Justice law. I think it's outrageous, but he went further to say, of course, that he wants lots and lots of our money as a divorce settlement as well. But many other things going on today. The quiet story today has been the young Charlie Gard story, where the parents, Connie and Chris, are busy preparing their case. They will be in the High Court tomorrow. This is the last chance for little Charlie Gard to get alternative medical treatment that is available in America. Whether we get the judgment tomorrow or not, I don't know. It may take a whole day in court, and we'll find out on Friday, but that will be happening, and you'll see that, from about 9:30, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And a story that has come to my attention that it really does shock me a little bit concerns Borough Market. Those that know that part of London will know it's full of little independent traders, and they're selling mackerel and they're selling brie and they're selling all sorts of different things. It's not the cheapest place to go shopping, but it's a lovely place to go shopping. And yet all these independent traders are having a really tough time right now because insurance payments that are due to dozens of those traders are being withheld because the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, hasn't yet officially stated that what happened was a terrorist incident. And I would hate to see small traders, people that have been to the bank and borrowed money and taken risk, I'd hate to see any of them go to the wall because of cash flow difficulties, because the government wasn't rallying to their side. Chancellor, please rally to those traders in Borough Market. It's a great place to go. And of course, yesterday we'd heard the story that Donald Trump Jr. had a meeting with a Russian who'd offered to give information, but in the end didn't give information. He appeared on Fox News last night and said he wished he'd done things differently, but that he didn't take any information, and he should have done things differently. But you know what? This is the most extraordinary smokescreen. And my big take on this is I don't suppose there's ever been a time when the global media was more against an American president than it is against Donald Trump. And I would say this, folks, whether you like Trump or dislike Trump, the fact is he is the elected president of the USA, and he should be allowed to get on, do his job, and be judged as being good at it or bad at it by the electorate in the years to come. And I feel that every obstruction is being put in his way. Frankly, it feels a bit like a witch hunt. If you've ever met a Russian in a bar and shaken hands, you must be implicated. That is how ludicrous, in my view, the whole thing is. And it's a massive global Twitter war. And any tweets you want to send me on Trump Jr., Trump and what's going on, send them through, and I will do my absolute best between now and the top of the hour to read them out. Now back to Monsieur Barnier saying the ECJ that European Court must have a say over EU citizens living in this country. And I'm going next to Sonia, who is in Colchester. Sonia, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, and you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
So what do you think?
Well, I think it's ludicrous. My mother's Spanish. My father's Polish, right? And they've lived under British law before we entered the EU.
Yes.
Equally happy, nothing wrong, because British law is great. I cannot believe that the EU think that European citizens should be above British law. I just don't understand it.
Well, because effectively, Sonia, that is what they're saying, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I think it's ludicrous. It's absolutely disgusting. My mother would never have come to this country. She came in 1960 and think, right, do you know what? I'm going to go to the Spanish courts if the British courts ain't treating me right. It's not right, is it, really?
Well, no, I think unless we all live equally under the law in our country, then there would be a perception, would there not, that we weren't living in a fair society.
Exactly.
It would be completely right. Did you vote Brexit, Sonia?
Of course I did. So did my mother, and so did all of her foreign friends. And I'm not just talking about white, I'm talking black, Asian, because they've been here since the 50s and 60s, Nigel.
Yes.
And they've seen a drastic change in this country, and my mother, like I said, my mother wants out. She came to Britain for a reason, because it was Britain. It wasn't Europe, it was Britain. Completely different.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, actually, and I have heard that from a lot of people who came here in years gone by. They came here because we were what we were. They didn't come here because they wanted us to become like the European Union, run by unelected old men like Monsieur Barnier, charming though he may be. So, Sonia, do you right now think that we're going to get the kind of Brexit that you voted for?
No. No, I can't see it, Nigel. I really can't. They are, the Ramonas are just like nicking away at everything. And we've got May. Well, she's not going to do much, is she, really?
She won't be there long.
I like Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Oh, you're another one. One.
I'm telling you, he should be in power. He should take the reins along with you. Could you imagine it? We'd get what we want, but I can't see it. In a year, all this has got to be sorted in a year. Do you think it's going to happen, Nigel?
Well, the one thing Barnier did say that made sense today is that the clock is ticking, and indeed ever since the referendum and then the triggering of Article 50, the clock has been ticking. Sonia, I remain optimistic, but I'm waiting and seeing. Sonia, thank you very much for your call. Paul on Facebook says, this is the UK and we all live under UK law from now on. Richard says, get out of every aspect of the EU and bring back sovereignty and the rule of common law and the UK Bill of Rights. And on text I get, what if you live in the USA? We don't have a UK court there, do we? No, well, quite. John in Formby, we voted Brexit, but Monsieur Barnier seems to have a different interpretation of what that means.
Oh, yes, he does. 3 points here. First of all, for the benefit of Alex, I'm going to amend a quote from Ambrose Bierce. You define a Democrat. A Democrat is someone who votes our way.
Yes, quite. No, he was struggling with that concept, wasn't he? Right, your second point, John.
Yeah, right. Going on to the second point. Just amplifying what someone said earlier. When India got its independence, would we have had the nerve to say to the Indians, oh, by the way, you've got your independence, but any Brits staying on in India are still subject to British law?
They'd have rioted, John.
Yes, and who would blame them?
Quite.
The third point, I'm going to meet Alexander the Great somewhere halfway, actually, because I don't think our system is that wonderful. Yes, it is better than Europe's, but on quite a few occasions, the superior European Court has come up with decisions which our courts denied our citizens.
Well, now that depends, John, which court you're talking about, doesn't it? Because there are two, without confusing everybody, but there is, of course, the European Court of Justice, which is the EU's court in Luxembourg. There's also the European Court of Human Rights, associated but separate, which is based in Strasbourg.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember which was which of these decisions.
Don't worry, no one ever can.
There was a bus driver who was fired because he was a member of the BNP.
Yeah.
And as far as you don't bring your politics into the workplace, I don't think an employer's got the right to interfere with that. Now, his case was upheld by Europe. Also, there was a Christian lady who got into trouble for
wearing a cross. Yeah. Well, actually, John, you're talking there about the European Court of Human Rights, and yeah, I mean that's a slightly separate subject. John, I think the point is this: that whether the European Court makes good judgments or bad judgments, the point about Brexit was we did vote for sovereignty. We voted to make our own laws, have our own parliament, control our own borders, for good or bad. Isn't that what Brexit was about?
Oh, absolutely, but it doesn't take away the need to reform our courts, because there is a lot that can be done with them.
Fine. OK, John, listen, thank you. 3 points that John from Formby's made, all of them interesting. No way, Barnier, says one of the text messages that I've got. Matthew says, would have to abide by the law when visiting other countries like China. Yeah, never going to happen. I'm an American. Does this mean that I can only use the American laws when I live in the UK? No, Bill. You're here, matey. You've got to live by our law. It's simple. Why do we treat people from the EU different to the rest of the world, folks? The reason is because our politicians were busy packaging us up to be a province of a United States of Europe. And what Brexit did was to reverse that process. Hooray is what I say. Will, in Evesham, what do you make of the powers of the ECJ?
Absolutely great to have, isn't it? I mean, there was that example, I'm sure you heard it on the radio this morning, Nigel, about that gay couple who won their claim. Yeah, it was the gentleman who'd been contributing to his company pension for the last 25 years. But unfortunately, because of the loophole in British law, he wasn't, his spouse or his husband was not going to get his entitlement. But thanks entirely, purely, specifically to European law, he is now able to.
Oh, fabulous! So should we close all our courts down, close our parliament down, and just sort of choose somebody living in a random part of the world to judge how we should live?
Hang on, Mike. This is where you're just spreading propaganda. It's not mutually exclusive. Are you trying to suggest for 1 minute that our values are not common to Europe, that we don't have common values with Europe?
We have a very different legal system, and certainly our common law system, with, the presumption of innocence before guilt, with right to jury trial and all of those things. I mean, our system is very, very different, Will, to much of Europe, yes. And I generally think that our system is better and fairer. I think habeas corpus actually exists in this country, and it doesn't in most of Europe.
Yeah. Do we have common values with our European partners?
In many ways we do,
absolutely.
But so what? But so what? We have common values with many parts of the world.
The so what is your argument is entirely fatuous. You're trying to suggest that somehow European Parliament and the British Parliament are somehow mutually exclusive. They're absolutely not.
Well, in most ways. Well, so you're happy. Let's just be clear. You're happy post-Brexit for foreign courts.
Brexit hasn't happened yet, Nigel. And this idea that we're going to happen, and this is your other fatuous argument, dividing people into Ramonas. Are you a Leaver? Are you one or the other? Look at the facts, Nigel.
We voted Brexit, Will.
What's happening?
We voted Brexit. Do you want to reverse Brexit, Will?
We did have an advisor, which is completely missed.
Do you want to reverse Brexit, Will?
I want to look at the facts. Don't.
You're not answering me.
Absolutely. I would give the people another vote.
Thank you, Will from Evesham. Thank you very much indeed. Will, who does not accept... we got there in the end. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:46.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
The government has been accused of undermining social housing and not caring about where poor people live. Is there any way to solve this ongoing problem?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Smirnoff are starting the conversation to increase diversity with the Equalising Music campaign, which wants to double the number of females headlining festivals by 2020. James O'Brien was joined by Layla Fattar, Head of Culture and Entertainment at Diageo on LBC.
You know, it's something that you just don't even think about it. It's very, very strange, and I think that's what we really uncovered was this lack of not even talking about it or not even noticing.
To get involved and for a chance to win £1,000, head to lbc.co.uk.
Are you confused about PPI?
At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely every reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you find out, as you could be owed thousands. And now there's a deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards with, and we'll check for free. So find out now if you're owed by texting WIN to 82222.
PPI Hotline. Text WIN to 82222.
And just when you thought they couldn't sound any better, the Jaguar sales event runs from the 14th to the 16th of July with exclusive offers across the range, including a new Jaguar XE with up to £3,735 deposit contribution and 4.9% APR representative finance with Jaguar Privilege PCP. Search for your local retailer at jaguar.co.uk. Jaguar, the art of performance.
Credit subject to status. UK 18 plus only. Terms and conditions apply. At participating retailers only. Black Horse Limited trading as Jaguar Financial Services.
Block management? Oh, it's a doddle, isn't it? I mean, once you've got budget approval, all you need to do is your service charge invoices,
health and safety regulations paperwork, do the cleaning, the gardening, general maintenance, sort out site inspections, arrange contracts, insurance, emergency representation.
Yes, block management. Such a doddle.
Save time and money and cut down on the stress. For complete block management solutions, just call ABC Estates. ABC will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry.
For complete block management solutions, see abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
We've been thinking about Tom.
The cat.
And how, whilst he's remembered to buy cat litter, he's forgotten his bank card. But instead of worrying about how he's going to pay for it, he's simply wondering if a dog might have been a better choice of pet. That's because at NatWest, we've already thought about the left bank card at home scenario. It's why we created Get Cash, so you can withdraw money from our cash machines with just our mobile app. NatWest, we are what we do.
Take out up to £130 a day as long as it's within your withdrawal limit. App available to customers with online banking and a UK number.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Tough guy Mr Barnier says we must, post-Brexit, accept the European Court of Justice having a say and giving EU citizens in our country greater rights than British citizens would have. And he also says we're going to have to pay a whopping great big bill. What is going on? Anthony on Facebook suggests one can only imagine the panic going on behind closed doors in Brussels over the cash cow leaving for them to make such ridiculous claims. Well, Anthony, you may be right. They may well be in a state of panic. Indeed, the other day, the Hungarian foreign minister said in an interview with the BBC that he basically thought that the European Union had a very weak hand in these negotiations because actually in terms of trade, money and business, they need us far more than we need them. And yet Barnier is playing the game the other way. It's economic logic against politics, and that actually is what the whole renegotiation is going to be about. I think Barnier is ludicrous to say Europe could enforce law in a sovereign Britain. Come to our country, follow our laws, says Alex. Brexit should be a clean and final break. No more interference from the EU, says Teresa. And Paul in Brecon says the EU has to cut its cloth according to its reduced income after Brexit. When you leave a club, you leave a club. Do they not understand that? No, Paul, they don't understand that. They don't really think we're going to leave. Andy in Farnham is my next caller. Good evening.
Nigel, good evening. I'm phoning on behalf of the country, really, because we need your help.
Right.
You were one of the main architects of our Brexit revolution.
Yeah.
But Boris Johnson's behaviour, and it's more than one occasion now, is antagonising. We're going into very tough negotiations. And when we use, unstatesmanlike language, like tell them to go whistle for their amount, and bearing in mind a few months ago, remember when he spoke about the French acting like they're in the war? Please, in your influence, when you.
Oh, this was the punishment. This was the punishment beatings comment, wasn't it? Yeah, no, I do remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. Real foreign statesman-like language representing our country. Before you know it, we're going to get absolutely stuffed because we will be seen as amateur negotiators. Please, and it is, I implore you, when you network with all your political friends, to let's start behave like professional politicians if you're going to represent Britain's interests, because ultimately it's going to cost us jobs and it's going to cost us money, and I'm one of these people who voted for Brexit, but this is not a professional divorce negotiation.
Let me ask you, Andy, I mean, our chief Brexit negotiator and member of the Cabinet is David Davis. How do you assess his performance so far?
At the moment, I think he's lost. I don't think he's got a direction. I don't think he's been given, once again, from the majors, you know, we've all seen over the recent weeks, non-existent. So therefore, they're just meandering around in an unstructured, unfocused environment, but representing 65 million people.
And allowing Monsieur Barnier to basically take charge, which is what he was doing today, wasn't he?
Yeah, in any successful negotiation, it has to be a win-win. Both parties have to feel that they're working together. It's about our future. It's critical. But, Nigel, we need your help in order to keep that on the agenda, because we are not acting professionally in our negotiations. The language is not statesmanlike.
Fine. Andy, no, you've made your point. And actually, I think on reflection, when the Foreign Secretary says go whistle, it's quite funny. But on reflection, Andy, I think you're probably right. I think we do need to show that we are perfectly reasonable, decent people. But they also, Andy, need to behave. And I do think, and this is back to where we started this, Andy, I do think that for Barnier to suggest that post-Brexit, a court in Luxembourg should have a say over people living here, I think that too, Andy, is unreasonable, isn't it?
It is, but it's about a respectful separation. We have to respect our neighbours, because there's this strip of water, you know, ultimately when we are separated, because obviously there's no going back, we still have to respect our neighbours and work in a collaborative manner.
No, Andy, that's a very grown-up phone call, and I think, actually, on reflection, a lot of people will agree with the sentiments that you have expressed. Ryan in Bridgend in Wales, how do you feel about the European Court of Justice having say in our country post-Brexit?
Well, Mr. Farage, a pleasure to speak to you.
Good evening.
On a beautiful evening in Wales. I'd just like to say one thing in regards to how politics works. You know, when you sit down and you have a discussion around the table with all the members of the political establishment in Brussels, you know, when you have facts put in front of you, and then you base your opinion on the facts, you think British people had all the facts when they voted for Brexit?
Well, it depends what you call facts, of course, because there is all sorts of people claim to own the truth. I mean, Ryan, I'll tell you one thing that is indisputable about the referendum, and that is that people that voted to leave voted for us to run our own country. Fact.
And I just like to say I was in the 48% that voted Remain. However, I do believe that now we do need to get on with it. However, when you say there about facts, etc., an earlier caller was mentioning the World Trade Organization tariffs. I do believe it's 90% of all lamb, which is produced in Wales, is exported. Do you know what the tariff is on any meat that would be sent out of?
Oh, it's very high. I mean, on manufactured goods, Ryan, tariffs are average about 2 or 3%. When it comes to food products, you're talking 25, 35%. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So that obviously means that we are going to be a poorer nation, because like that.
Well, hang on, Ryan. Hang on. Whoa, down there, Ryan. We are massive net importers of food and wine and fruit from the European Union. So if we go to WTO and prices go up, then, Ryan, it's the Europeans that get hurt far more than the Welsh farmers. And that's where the economic logic kicks in, Ryan. That's where there ought to be a sensible... I mean, if they're prepared to do a trade deal with Japan and Canada, why wouldn't they do it for one of their biggest export markets in the world?
Well, and I couldn't agree more. We definitely need a deal. But when we get the Conservative government, which is clearly in a massive disarray at the moment, and our politics is in a massive disarray at the moment, we don't know where we stand. We are left to wait and to see what happens when it comes to well, and I do believe, and do quote me if I'm wrong, £100 billion
euros. But, Ryan, that isn't going to happen. I mean, look, they're scared, Ryan. You know, the British economy is as big as the 20 smallest member states of the European Union. They are scared. I think the Hungarian Foreign Minister's right, Ryan. They've got more to lose than we've got to lose. But I take your point that in an ideal world, we don't go to WTO rules. And I thank you very much for your call. I thank everybody for lots and lots of calls and texts and tweets and messages and lots of passion. And my final thought on all of this has to be that most of those tonight that have called in and said that the European Court of Justice should continue to have jurisdiction over this country are people who want to reverse the referendum, have a second referendum, or who question democracy itself. We voted to leave. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. I'm back tomorrow from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. So